Namaste. Hello everyone. Today I am back with your next chapter in history, that is socialism in Europe and the Russian Revolution. Previously we studied about French Revolution, and now we are going to uh, study about the other part of Europe, that is about Russia. So, and what were the effects, and I am going to share a PPT where you can understand in a better manner. So, socialism in Europe and Russian Revolution. So, we shall study about what is socialism, and before that, you know where is Russia, and Russia was a very big empire in the 18th and 19th century, and it was considered as one of the largest empire, which was almost covering much part of the eastern side of the Europe and also a part of Asia also. So now about the introduction of this. The chapter throws light on coming of socialism in Europe and dramatic events that forced the ruling monarch during the revolution. It was Tsar Nicholas II. Tsar, here you find a word TZTSAR. Tsar means they used to call the emperor as Tsar in the Russian language to give up power. So people wanted him to step down from the monarchy. And one can see how the ideals of socialism brought about Russian Revolution. So what is socialism? We are going to study. Socialism means common ownership. In a very simplest manner, socialism meaning is given as socialism means common ownership. So here common ownership means whatever the country has, its resources, its assets and everything, it belongs to every citizen of the country. That was the idea of socialism. All are equal. The equality will come. Common ownership means everybody having the right to participate in decisions on how global resources will be used. So every common man should have the right to participate, or they can get involved in the decisions and how the resources will be used. All these things every common man has a right. So the beginning, what is it? Sudden change in the society occurred after French Revolution, which was dominated by the church and aristocracy and divided into estates and orders. We studied all this in depth in previous chapter, French Revolution. So here, why French Revolution took place? Because it was dominated by the church and the aristocracy, that is the lavish living of the emperor and his family and nobles, and then it had divided into estates and orders. So common people were suffering. So that's why French Revolution took place. So the European society was divided into liberals, radicals and conservatives. We are going to learn in further. That is, it was divided into liberals, radicals, then conservatives. So now see here in the right side, I have taken how they used to have in the French Revolution. First estate was the clergy, second estate was nobility, third estate was big businessmen, merchant, courts, officials, lawyers, then peasants and artisans, then small peasants, landless labor, and etc. Who are liberals? Now we shall learn about these three. liberals, radicals, and conservatives. First, we shall go with the liberals. Who are the liberals? The liberals are those who wanted a nation that could tolerate all religion as people. So there should be equality among all the religions, and they wanted a nation that could tolerate, that is, that should accept all the religions as people. Then they approach for elected parliamentary government subjected to laws and not the rulers. So what they wanted? They wanted a elected parliamentary government. The people must elect their representatives and the government should be in such a way that it should follow the laws, not the rulers. So rulers should not dictate or they should not take any other decisions. So everything must go as per the laws which have to be prepared. But they felt only men of property have the rights to vote. But in these liberals, what they said, only the men should have the rights and they should have, and they felt only men of property have the rights to vote. Who are radicals? They disliked concentration of property in the hands of a few. The radicals, those who wanted a government based on majority of population, they opposed the privileges of great landlords and wealthy factory owners. See here, there is a lot of difference between the liberals and the radicals. First and foremost thing is they dislike the concentration of property in the hands of few. So the property should not be in hands of few. Everyone must have the property. Then the radicals wanted a government based on majority of the population. Majority of the population means here that it should have majority, that is whichever population has majority, they should have the rights to vote or form the government. They oppose the privileges of great landowners. They oppose the privileges of great landowners and wealthy factory owners. So because always most of the, see what we saw in French Revolution, the nobles who were rich landlords and all. So such people, even in Russia, people did not prefer, and these radicals oppose the privileges. That is, whatever the privileges they were enjoying, that must be, uh, it should not be under the hands of great landowners and wealthy factory owners. That was being opposed. Then finally, conservatives. Before that, see here, left versus right. This problem also used to start because of the radicals. And now, who are conservatives? Conservatives are those who felt that changes should be brought forth slowly, but at the same time, the past should also be respected. The past should also be respected, right? So they should not lose the culture, they should not lose the past of the country. All those things must be kept in mind, and then they want a change which should go in a very slow process, by which they should always respect the past of the society and the country. See, in the right side, we have a cartoon. Do you have any idea how many people you are offending with that flag? So like that, this is the conservatism and liberalism. So liberal people, they ask. So conservatism, they should tell what is the answer which was asked by the liberals. Now, in France, Louis Blanc wanted the government to encourage the cooperatives and replace capitalist enterprise. Who are capitalist enterprise? The rich factory owners, and they were having lot of money, and by which they used to control the markets. So such people, they should replaced they should replace by the cooperatives, and the government should encourage. So socialists were against private property and saw it as a root of social evils. So here in Russia, socialists were against the private property. So people should not have private property and saw it as the root of social evils. Some believed in cooperatives. Some demanded that governments must encourage cooperatives. And then we are going to study about the great personalities. One is like Karl Marx and Frederick Engels added that industrial society was capitalist. So mainly they demanded about the cooperatives. Karl Marx believed that a socialist society would free the workers from capitalism. So once a socialist society with lot of cooperatives and all the individuals work together uh, by not gaining the capitalism, so they will be free from that capitalism. This would be a communist society. Communist society means involvement of all the community. That was the idea of Karl Marx. So support for socialism. Socialists formed an organization called Second International to spread the socialist idea. So they formed an organization. Those who supported the socialism, they called it as Second International to spread the ideas. So these were the medals or uh, what they used to circulate among the society. And then here, workers in Germany and England began forming associations to fight for better living conditions. They set up funds for members in distress, reduction of working hours, and right to vote. See here, we are talking about Germany and England. Means after the French Revolution, lot of changes came in the society. So by which what happened? All the Europe was needed a change. So that's why generally Germany and England also were almost in the stages or phases of the industrialization. So during industrialization, lot of investment was put by the factory owners or the capitalists, where workers were working hard and there was no systems, there were no working hours, they never had the right to vote, all these things now they got added in this socialism, and it was spreading to various countries. Workers in Germany and England they started forming associations like labor association, welfare association, workers union, like this, for betterment of their living conditions. And they set up funds, they pooled money for memberships in distress, reduction of working hours, and right to vote. Now we shall study about Russian Revolution. Russian Revolution, we are going to study about Russian Revolution. What actually Russian Revolution, how it started, and what actually had become the system. And here I am going to share some of the points with you. Uh, an autocracy. Autocracy is uh, An autocracy is a system where is a system of government in which an autocrat defined as a single person or a party possesses the supreme and absolute power. Auto means single. Autocracy is a system of government in which an autocrat means the individual or a single person, that is defined as a single person or a party. It may be a party or a single person possessing all the supreme and absolute power. So here, this is the picture of Nicholas II, was the last Tsar. Tsar means emperor. I told you in Russian language they used to call the emperor as the Tsar. So Nicholas II was the last Tsar of the Russian Revolution, Russian Empire, who ruled between 1894 and 1917 under the official title of Emperor and Autocrat of all the Russia. And he was only the autocratic ruler. He used to be the single, all the powers were under him. Economy and society, how the society was and how the economy was going on. I've collected few pictures here. Russian population, about 85% were an agriculturist. So 85% of the Russian population was having the occupation of agriculture. Industries were being set up in which was the most private property of industrialists. Most of the property and industries were set up, and most of them were owned by the private people, and they had their own property of industrialists. Workers were divided into groups, but they did unite to strike work when they were dissatisfied. The workers also, they were divided into groups, and whenever but they always united together when they wanted to do any strike, when they were dissatisfied with their owners or management or whatever. Peasants had no respect for nobility, very unlike the French peasant. So here, this is the difference. In French government or during the French Revolution, before the French Revolution, the French people or peasants, the poor people had to respect their nobles. They had to follow them, otherwise they were being punished. But here, peasants had no respect for nobility, very unlike French peasants. Russian peasants were the only peasant community which pooled their land and their commune divided it. Means here they were only the peasant community which pooled. They brought together all their lands. They were pooled, and then they used to do their cultivation, and their community only divided it. Socialism. Socialism meaning making everyone equally poor since 1917. So after the Russian Revolution, socialism was in a high peak, and then they make every citizen of the country equal and equally poor. If the country is poor, everyone has to be poor. So that was the thing which happened. All political parties were illegal in Russia before 1914. So the Tsar has taken up all the issues, and because he was the supreme power, he was the decision maker. So other political parties, he made it as illegal before 1914. The Russian Social Democratic Labour Party was formed in the year 1898. It struggled to give peasants their rights over land that belonged to the nobles. So, this was Russian Socialist Democratic Labour Party was formed in the year 1898, and it struggled. They tried to give the rights to the poor peasants who were working on the lands belonging to the nobles. As land was divided among peasants periodically, which makes them natural socialists, and it was felt that peasants are not workers would be the main source of the revolution. Here, what does this mean? Land was divided among the peasants periodically, which makes the natural socialist, because everyone is becoming equal naturally. And it was felt that peasants are not workers would be the main source of revolution. And not only the peasants, but everyone should be equally responsible for the revolution. But Lenin also one of a great personality who made, who had brought communist systems in the world. That is Lenin and Karl Marx are the key persons. So Lenin did not agree with this, as he felt that peasants were not one social group. That the peasants were not one social group. So he disagreed with that. The party was divided into Bolsheviks and Mensheviks. Lenin, with the disagreement of Lenin regarding socialist systems, the party was divided into two, that is Bolsheviks and Mensheviks. Then the Russian Revolution actually started in the year 1905. Russia was an autocracy. The Tsar was not subject to the parliament. Even though parliament was there, the Tsar was not the subject to the parliament. Liberals wanted to end this state of affairs. They worked towards demanding a constitution during the revolution of 1905. What happened? These socialists and all these liberals wanted to end this state of affairs. That is, they wanted to remove the Tsar. They worked towards demanding a constitution. They wanted a written constitution during the revolution of 1905. Then one incident took place on a Sunday. That was called a Bloody Sunday. We are going to learn about it. Many 100 to 200 men and women and children were shot dead and killed. 450 to 800 wounded. The event caused hatred towards the Tsar Nicholas. Why? Because on a Sunday he ordered his troops to open fire and kill the people. Prices of essential goods rose quickly by 1904, that the real wages were declined by 20%. And all the prices of the goods, they started rising quickly, and then wages of the workers were declined. They are coming down by almost 20%. During this time, 4 members of Putilov Iron Works were dismissed, and even workers were dismissed from the factories without any notice or information. The action was called for. Over 110,000 workers in St. Petersburg went on strike, demanding a reduction in working hours and increase in wages. They wanted an increase in the wages, and they wanted reduction of the working hours. The procession was led by Father Gapon. Father Gapon, one of the leaders for these workers. This procession was attacked by the police and Cossacks. Cossacks means it's like a military. Over 100 workers were killed. Strikes took place as a reaction. Strikes took place as a reaction. 1905, Bloody Sunday. They call it as Bloody Sunday. Russia lost a war with Japan. During 1900 and between 1900 and 1905, there was a lot of disturbance and war was going on with Japan regarding some of the islands. So Russia lost a war with Japan, which angered many serfs and the workers because their family members were forced to fight in the war, because all the people were forced to go and fight the war. On January 22nd, thousands of people marched on the Winter Palace to ask Tsar Nicholas for reforms. Reforms means to change the things. They wanted to ask the people. So many people marched towards the palace. Palace troops shot people in the crowd. They shot dead many people. They shot people in the crowd. This became known as Bloody Sunday because it was a Sunday, so it became a Bloody Sunday. More and more riots began to occur after this. After this, more and more disturbances, riots became. People demanded a constituent assembly. The Tsar allowed the creation of an elected consultative parliament or Duma. What is Duma? The Russian parliament is called Duma. In India, how we call Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. The same way, the Russian parliament was called as Duma. So, the Tsar allowed the creation of an elected consultative parliament or Duma. Tsar dismissed the first Duma within 75 days and announced the election of a second Duma. First Duma was dismissed by the Tsar because the Tsar is the emperor. He had lot of powers to do whatever he wants. So he dismissed and announced a election for the second Duma. Then the First World War and the Russian Empire. What happened? The First World War started. When it was started in the year 1914 and ended up to 1918. So, and in this, what happened? Russia was also an ally. So it was in the allied forces, allied powers we used to call. So first country was England, second was France, third was Russia, fourth was America, and it had a war with central powers, that is Germany, Austria, Hungary, and Turkey. In Russia, the war was initially very popular, but later the support grew thin. Then people stopped the support. Starting initially, it was very popular. Anti-German sentiments ran high. Germany was the neighboring country during that time, and then anti-German sentiments ran high. Russian armies lost badly in the Germany and Austria. So when war broke out, Russian army lost very badly with the Germany and Austria. And then Russia and World War One. Russia declares war on Austria-Hungary. War becomes unpopular. Rationing leads to starvation. There was no food because the Russia was covered with a large area and they had to protect their borders. So for that they had to fight very fiercely with Germany and Austria. So by which there was no proper supply of food and all those things. So this led to starvation. There was no food for the soldiers and the people living in the different pockets or corners in the country. Nicholas II leaves St. Petersburg to war front. Even the emperor had to go for the war. There were 7 million casualties. Casualties mean deaths, and 3 million refugees in Russia. The war also affected the industry. So anyway, the economy will get disturbed, and even the industries had to stop the production, and even it lost a lot of business. There was a labor shortage, railway lines were shut down, small workshops were closed down, there was a shortage of grain and hence of the bread because they used to eat bread. So for bread, they need grains. So there was no grains available. There was shortage of grain and bread was not there. So there is no food for the people. So then later on in the year 1917, February Revolution took place. What is that? It was in a place called Petrograd. Petrograd, there was food shortage. Women started demonstrating, striking. Workers joined in demonstrations, call for general strikes. Soldiers fired on the demonstrators, but following day joined the revolution. So when the emperor gave orders to fire on the demonstrators, they did that. And then next day, people could understand, soldiers also started joining the revolution. By 28th February, Tsarist ministers are under arrest. Even the ministers of the emperor were also under arrest. Nicholas again dissolves the Duma, then abdicates, offers crown to his brother Michael, but offer was rejected. The people were forcing the Tsar to step down and he was abdicated. Abdicated means forcing him to come down. And even the emperor told that instead of me, my brother will become the emperor. But people rejected it. The offer was rejected. Duma returns represents propertied classes. Again, Duma was formed. It came back. Again, parliament was restored. Then represents propertied classes, and they wanted only the propertied classes. So these are the pictures of February Revolution and down the palace. Then next is October. After February was over, then started October Revolution. 16th October 1917, Lenin persuaded the Petrograd Soviet and Bolshevik Party to agree to a socialist seizure of power. So during October 1917, Lenin persuaded the Petrograd Soviet and other party, Bolshevik party, to agree to a socialist. Socialist means taking help of all the people. They wanted to seize the power. A military revolutionary committee was appointed by the Soviet to organize the seizure. So they all formed, even a military revolutionary committee was formed, and then they wanted to like seize the powers under their control. Uprising began on 24th October. This became more and more popular and people's participation increased. That's why we call it as uprising. Prime Minister Kerensky left the city to summon troops. He wanted to call the troops because there was a lot of disturbance. From where he has to bring the troops? Because World War was going on, so all the troops and the soldiers were in the borders fighting the war. So at that time, Prime Minister has to leave the city. He had to leave the city and he wanted to summon the troops. The February Revolution in March 1917. Military men loyal to the government seized the buildings of two Bolshevik newspapers. That is Bolshevik newspapers. They were printing newspapers, Bolsheviks, against the emperor. So his military men who were loyal to the government seized the buildings of the two Bolshevik newspapers. Pro-government troops were sent to take over telephone and telegraph offices and protect the Winter Palace. And then other troops, they had to protect the telephone and telegraph, and then they have to protect the Winter Palace also. So in response, Military Revolutionary Committee ordered to seize the government offices and arrest the ministers. In the other hand, here the socialists, what they did, they took up that Military Revolutionary Committee and they ordered to seize the government offices and arrest all the ministers. Aurora ship. What is this? The Aurora ship shelled the Winter Palace. Shelled means bombed. The bombing is called the shelling. Other ships took over strategic points. By night, the city has been taken over and ministers had surrendered. All Russian Congress of Soviets in Petrograd approved the Bolshevik action. All the Russian Congress of Soviets in Petrograd approved the Bolshevik action. They gave a support. Approving means nothing but giving a support. This is the Winter Palace of St. Petersburg. Then there was a heavy fighting in Moscow. By December, the Bolsheviks controlled the Moscow and Petrograd area. The people involved were Lenin, the Bolshevik troops, pro-government also. Pro-government means those who are not supporting the government. These are the old newspapers. And then what were the effect? Most industry and banks were nationalized in the year November 1917. Nationalized means under the control of the government. The land was declared social property and peasants were allowed to seize the land of the nobility. Even because of the socialism, all the land was declared as social, and then property, peasants they were allowed to go and seize the land of the nobility. No one would stop. Use of old aristocratic titles was banned. So the old aristocrat form, excuse me, titles were banned. New uniforms were designed for the army and officials. Russia became a one-party state. They had only one party. Trade unions were kept under the party control. All the trade unions, workers unions, they were brought under the party control. A process of centralized planning was introduced. This led to economic growth. Industrial production increased. An extended schooling system developed. Collectivization of farms started. That is collective farming, what we studied in geography. So that was introduced. Then finally, the civil war broke out. When the Bolsheviks ordered land redistribution, the Russian army began to break up. The Russian army began to break up. Non-Bolshevik socialists, liberals, and supporters of autocracy condemned the Bolshevik uprising. So those who were not supporting Bolsheviks or liberals and the supporters of autocracy, they wanted the king only to rule. Such people, they also condemned about the Bolshevik uprising. Non-Bolshevik socialist liberals and supporters of autocracy condemned the Bolshevik uprising. They formed their troops, were called Greens. They called them as Greens, which would fight against Bolshevik Red. So what happened? The troops which were formed by non-Bolshevik socialists, they were called as green because they wore green colored and which would fight against Bolshevik red. So these are the books which were published. The pro-Tsar whites controlled most of the Russian Empire. The people who supported the Tsar, they and the noble people, they were called as pro-Tsar whites and they had controlled most of the Russian Empire. They were supported by the French, American, British and Japanese troops. Here, sorry, pro-Tsar means here those who were against the Tsar. And these whites started controlling most of the Russian Empire. They were supported by the French, American, British and Japanese troops. All these fought a war with the Bolsheviks. That is, America, British, French and Japanese troops, they supported the Tsar. So that's why their soldiers were given the support to fight with the Bolsheviks. Pro-Tsar, again, starting also we studied. Pro-Tsar means those who promoted the Tsar, they were called as the pro-Tsar. Next is redemption, the last battle of the Civil War. Making a socialist society. The Bolsheviks kept industries and banks nationalized during the Civil War. The Bolsheviks, what they did, they kept all the industries and banks nationalized during the Civil War. Nationalized means it brought under their control and they kept it nationalized. That is, it belongs to the nation, the industries as well as the banks. A process of centralized planning was introduced. Stalin and collective farming. Who was Stalin? Stalin believed that rich peasants and traders stocked supplies to create the shortage of grains. That is, what Stalin had believed that these rich peasants and traders are stocking the goods, and what we call it as in exactly hoarding. We call them as hoarding, right? So collectivization was need of the hour. So Stalin thought collectivization to collect all these goods, that was the need of the hour. This system would also help to modernize farms. Even this system may help. Those farmers who resisted collectivization were punished, deported, or exiled. Deported means they were sent out of the country. They were not allowed to do any farming. And then exiled. Exiled means they have to go away from their places. So this all took place, and there was a lot of change in the world after these two revolutions. These two revolutions means the first one was the French Revolution, and then it led to the ideas of various systems of administration, and the democratic thinking came. Then socialism ideologies came. Then, with the help of Karl Marx and Lenin, the idea of communist. Now also Russia follows communist way of government, China follows, and various countries in the world, many countries are following the communism, but they have completely the ideologies of socialism, that is all are equal, everything belongs to the people, every individual. So there won't be any rich poor or such thoughts. So all these things, and children, whatever slides I had shown you, all that are the key sentences and key points of the chapter. So unless you note down those points, and then if you go through the textbook, reading is compulsory. If you read the textbook, then only you are able to understand. Otherwise, you cannot understand the topic, and just you may think that it's like easy task. No, you have to study, you have to read the textbook, underline the key points, and write it in your notebooks, and then learn. Then you uh, go through this video, and then read the textbook, underline the key points, note down in your notebooks, then only it will be completed. Thank you.